Espiritu Santo Air Base, New Hebrides, July 7, 1943, 3 in the morning. A 30-year-old Marine major is sitting at the bar of the Officers Club. The bar is closed. The lights are off. He has broken in through a side window. He is drinking warm whiskey out of a coffee cup. His name is Gregory Boyington. He is wearing a flight suit that has not been washed in 2 weeks. He has not shaved in 5 days. His knuckles are scabbed from a fight he was in 2 nights ago. He owes the Marine Corps about $5,000 for a car he ran into a ditch in San Diego in 1941. He owes a bookie in Honolulu another $3,000. He owes various bartenders, friends, and ex-wives an amount he no longer remembers. He has been told 3 hours ago that the Marine Corps is going to give him command of a fighter squadron. The squadron does not exist yet. It will be built around 27 pilots who are currently scheduled for transfer back to the United States. Most of them are reservists with limited combat experience. Some of them have been in the South Pacific for less than 2 months. Some of them are men nobody else wants. Boyington is going to be given 7 weeks to turn them into a combat unit and then send them into the worst air war in the Pacific. The target will be Rabaul, the Japanese naval and air fortress on the northern tip of New Britain. It is the most heavily defended airspace in the world. In 12 weeks of combat, Boyington's squadron will claim 94 Japanese aircraft destroyed. It will produce 9 fighter aces. 3 of its pilots will receive the Navy Cross. Boyington himself will be credited with 26 victories with the squadron. He will receive the Medal of Honor. He will spend the last 20 months of the war in a Japanese prison camp where every man with him will believe, until the day of liberation, that he is dead. How does a man whose career the Marine Corps has been trying to end since 1941, a drunk, a brawler, a man who has been court-martialed once and is about to be court-martialed again, fly 26 Japanese planes into the ocean and walk out of a prisoner of war camp 3 years later? That answer begins in a backyard in St. Mary's, Idaho, in 1916. Gregory Boyington was born in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, on December 4, 1912. His parents divorced when he was a baby. His mother remarried a man named Ellsworth Hallenbeck. Boyington grew up with his stepfather's name. He did not learn that his biological father was a man named Charles Boyington until he was a teenager. He was a wild child. He fought. He drank his stepfather's whiskey when he was 12 years old. He worked in the logging camps in Idaho in the summers when he was 15. He learned to drive a logging truck before he had a driver's license. He was also brilliant. He earned a scholarship to the University of Washington. He studied aeronautical engineering. He swam on the varsity team. He boxed. He graduated in 1934 with a degree in engineering. He enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserve in 1934. And went to flight training at Pensacola in 1936. He earned his wings in 1937. He was commissioned a second lieutenant in the regular Marine Corps in 1937. He flew for the Marines for 3 years. He was an outstanding pilot. He was a terrible officer. He drank. He gambled. He chased women. He fought with his commanders. He ran up debts he could not pay. By 1940, his career was in serious trouble. In 1941, a recruiter for an organization called the Central Aircraft Manufacturing Company came to Pensacola. The recruiter was offering combat flying jobs in China to American military pilots. The pay was $675 a month plus $500 for every Japanese aircraft destroyed. The job came with a 1-year contract. Boyington owed everyone he knew money. He had 2 children and a divorced wife who needed support. The Marine Corps was about to discipline him for unpaid bills. He resigned his commission and signed the contract. In September 1941, he flew to China and joined the American Volunteer Group. The AVG was a covert operation. It was nominally a private mercenary organization. In reality, it was funded by the United States government, equipped with Curtiss P-40 fighters and operating in support of the Chinese nationalist government against the Japanese. The AVG was commanded by a retired Army Air Corps colonel named Claire Lee Chenault. The pilots called themselves the Flying Tigers. Boyington flew with the Tigers for 9 months. He scored 2 confirmed kills and 4 probables. He was credited with 2.5 victories on the official record. He was not a star pilot in the unit. The star pilots were Robert Neal, who had 13 kills, and Tex Hill, who had 12. Boyington also fought with Chenault. He fought with his squadron commander. He fought with the unit's adjutant. In April 1942, he was demoted from squadron commander to flight leader. In July, he resigned from the AVG and flew home to the United States. He arrived in San Francisco in September 1942. He was broke. He was unemployed. He was 30 years old. He looked 45. His mother did not recognize him when she met him at the airport. He went to the Marine Corps recruiting office and asked to be reinstated. The Marine Corps did not want him back. He had quit his commission to fly for a private organization. He had returned with no clear evidence of valor. He had a personal record that made him a disciplinary risk. A senior Marine officer who knew him from Pensacola, a man named Joseph Smoke, intervened. Smoke argued that Boyington was a combat-experienced pilot in a service that was desperately short of combat-experienced pilots. The Marines reinstated Boyington as a major, 2 ranks higher than the rank he had held when he resigned. He was sent to the Pacific in February 1943. Boyington spent his first months in the Pacific as the executive officer of a fighter squadron based on Guadalcanal. He flew combat missions over the Solomons. He shot down 2 Japanese aircraft. He was a competent but not outstanding fighter pilot. He also kept getting in trouble. He missed a briefing because he was drunk. He punched a fellow Marine officer in a bar fight on Guadalcanal. He owed money to half the men in the squadron. By June 1943, the wing commander was preparing paperwork to send him home for disciplinary reasons. What saved him was a problem that the wing commander could not solve. The 1st Marine Air Wing had a squadron, designated VMF-214, that was scheduled to rotate back to the United States. The pilots were either reserve officers nearing the end of their tours or new replacements who were not yet ready for combat. The wing commander needed to combine these men into an operational squadron. He needed someone to command them. He had no veteran squadron commanders available. Boyington was a combat-experienced major. He was available. He was about to be sent home anyway. The wing commander gave him VMF-214. He gave him 28 pilots, a complement of new F-4U Corsair fighters, and 7 weeks to make them ready for combat. Boyington moved his pilots to Espiritu Santo in late July 1943. They spent the next 6 weeks flying training missions 12 hours a day. Boyington drove them harder than any squadron commander in the wing. He flew with them. He critiqued their tactics in detail. He made them practice formation flying, gunnery, and combat maneuvering until they could do it in their sleep. He also drank with them. He gambled with them. He went into Espiritu Santo every Saturday night and got into bar fights. He paid for everyone's beer with money he did not have. He told stories about China. He listened to his men's stories about home. He learned every man's name, and every man's wife's name, and every man's children's names. At the end of the 2nd week, his pilots were calling him Gramps. He was 30 years old. They were mostly 23 or 24. Some of them were 18. To them, he looked old. The squadron correspondent started calling him Pappy. The name stuck. The squadron also picked an emblem. They were not the original VMF-214 pilots. They were a mix of leftovers, replacements, and men nobody else wanted. They decided they were the black sheep. They painted a black sheep on the cowling of each Corsair. On September 12, 1943, the Black Sheep deployed forward to the Russell Islands for their first combat tour. Their assignment was fighter sweep, escort, and combat patrol over the Bougainville and Rabaul air corridors. The tour was supposed to last 6 weeks. The men did not expect all of them to come back. On the squadron's 3rd combat day, after a sweep over the Vella La Vella area, in which the Black Sheep had downed 5 Japanese Zero fighters, the pilots were sitting in the squadron tent eating dinner. A new replacement pilot named Bob McClurg, who had not yet seen combat, asked Boyington a question. He said, "Pappy, how do you know when to attack?" Boyington was eating cold beans out of a can with a spoon. He looked up. He said, "Son, you do not know. You decide." McClurg said, "How do you decide?" Boyington said, "I look at the situation. I count the enemy. I count us. I think about where the sun is, where the clouds are, where my altitude advantage is. Then I decide." "I do not ever wait for the Japanese to decide for me. I never let the Japs choose the time of the fight." He paused. He took another bite of beans. He said, "Once you decide, you commit. You commit all the way. You fly your plane right into the middle of him. You do not think about going home. You do not think about your wife. You do not think about anything except killing the man in front of you. Then you go home." McClurg said, "Yes, sir." Boyington said, "And one more thing. If you ever see a Zero turning to come at you head-on, you do not break off. You go right at him. The Zero is more maneuverable than the Corsair below 250 knots. Above 250, the Corsair will outturn it. You go fast and you go straight. You do not give him any room to use what he has." McClurg said, "Yes, sir." Boyington nodded. He went back to his beans. McClurg shot down 4 Japanese aircraft in the next 6 weeks. He survived the war. In his memoirs, written 40 years later, he said that what Boyington told him in the squadron tent that night kept him alive. The Black Sheep flew their first combat tour from September 12th to October 19th, 1943. They flew the second from November 27th to January 4th, 1944. Between the 2 tours, Boyington personally was credited with 26 Japanese aircraft destroyed. His best day was September 16th, 1943, when he led the Black Sheep on an escort mission for Allied bombers attacking Balali Airfield. The Japanese intercepted with 40 Zero fighters. Boyington claimed 5 kills in a single engagement. The squadron claimed 11 total. They lost 1 pilot. His most famous engagement came on December 23, 1943, when he led a fighter sweep over Rabaul. He shot down 4 Japanese aircraft in 20 minutes. He landed back at Vella La Vella with 13 rounds of ammunition remaining in his guns. By January 3, 1944, Boyington's personal kill count stood at 26. The American press was following him closely. Eddie Rickenbacker, the leading American ace of the First World War, had 26 kills. Joe Foss, a Marine ace who had been the leading World War II ace at the time, had 26. Boyington was tied with both of them. He was 1 kill away from being the highest-scoring American ace in history. On January 3, 1944, he led another fighter sweep over Rabaul. He shot down 2 Japanese aircraft in the first minutes of combat. He claimed kill number 28, although the kill was never officially confirmed. He was then engaged by multiple Zeros at low altitude. His wingman, Captain George Ashman, was shot down beside him. Boyington went down trying to defend Ashman. He bailed out of his burning Corsair from a height of less than 200 feet, hitting the water hard. He was in the water for 8 hours, badly burned, with a fractured ankle and shrapnel wounds in his thigh. A Japanese submarine surfaced 50 yards from him at 4:30 in the afternoon. He was pulled aboard. For the next 20 months, he was a prisoner of war. He was beaten by Japanese guards. He was interrogated about American naval codes. He was kept in a camp called Ofuna, near Yokohama, where Japanese intelligence kept prisoners they considered valuable. He shared the camp with American submarine officers and a few naval aviators. He was fed approximately 600 calories a day. He weighed 128 pounds when he was liberated. He had weighed 210 when he was captured. He had no idea that he had been declared dead. The American government had presumed him killed in action when his squadron's last sweep over Rabaul on January 3rd had failed to spot him in the water. The Medal of Honor he had been recommended for had been approved and presented to his mother in a posthumous ceremony in Idaho in March 1944. He was alive. He was in a camp that no one knew about. He was a Marine. The Japanese cell where Boyington was held during his interrogation was 4 feet by 6 feet. The guards beat him with bamboo poles. They submerged him in tubs of water. They locked him in solitary confinement in the dark for days at a time. They did not break him. He gave them nothing they could use. He survived because the other prisoners shared their rations with him when he was being punished. He survived because a Japanese guard named Akimoto smuggled him cigarettes. He survived because he was Pappy Boyington, and he believed, in his own particular way, that he was harder to kill than the Empire of Japan was harder to keep him. In April 1945, he was transferred to Omori Camp on a small island in Tokyo Bay. He was liberated on August 29, 1945, when American Marines came ashore on the island. He came home weighing 128 pounds. He was awarded the Medal of Honor in person by President Harry Truman at the White House on October 5, 1945. The medal had been presented to his mother 18 months earlier. He took it back. Truman shook his hand. Boyington spent the next 4 years on the war bond tour and the public appearance circuit. He drank his way through it. He went bankrupt 3 times. He had a series of failed marriages. He could not hold a job. In 1958, when he was 45 years old, he wrote a memoir. He called it Black Sheep. The book was a bestseller. It was honest about his failures. It was honest about his drinking. It was honest about the men he had served with and the men he had buried. The royalties paid off the debts he had been carrying since 1941. In 1976, NBC made a television series based on his memoir. The show ran for 2 seasons. Boyington served as the technical advisor. He hated the show, but the money was good. He died on January 11, 1988, of cancer. He was 75 years old. His funeral was held at Arlington National Cemetery. 500 Marines attended. 6 of his Black Sheep pilots were there, all in their late 60s. Pappy Boyington's final score is officially listed by the United States Marine Corps as 28 aircraft destroyed. 6 of those kills came in his service with the Flying Tigers in China in 1941 and 1942. The American Volunteer Group records have been the subject of dispute for 80 years. Some historians credit Boyington with the 6 kills he claimed. Others credit him with 3.5. The Marine Corps credits him with the full 6. 22 of his kills came with VMF 214 in the South Pacific in late 1943 and early 1944. He is the leading Marine Corps ace of the Second World War. The Marine Corps named a fighter squadron after him in 2005. VMFA 214, the descendant of the original Black Sheep Squadron, is still active today. It flies F-35B Lightning IIs out of Marine Corps Air Station, Yuma, Arizona. Their squadron emblem is a black sheep on a black shield. Every new pilot who joins the squadron is required to read a copy of Black Sheep. When they finish reading it, they have to stand at attention in the squadron ready room and answer one question from the squadron commander. The question is the same one every time. The commander says, "Who was Gregory Boyington?" The new pilot is supposed to answer with the same sentence that Boyington once gave a young pilot named Bob McClurg in a tent on the Russell Islands in 1943. The answer is, "He was the man who taught us how to fight." If your father, your grandfather, your uncle, anyone in your family served in Marine Fighting Squadron 214, the American Volunteer Group, or any Marine Fighter Squadron in the South Pacific during the Second World War, leave their name in the comments below. Their unit, where they served. Don't just leave the name. Tell us one thing about them. One thing they did, or one thing they said, or one thing you remember. The men who flew those Corsairs deserve more than a name in a database. They deserve to be remembered as people. Subscribe if you want the next story. There are more of them.